The CEO's wife canceled my Christmas bonus on stage in front of 350 people to prove she was in charge. What she didn't realize, her entire $8.3 million Frostfire campaign ran on a system I built and still owned. By the time downtown lit up for the holidays, every billboard bearing her face went dark, thanks to a clause she never read. I'm Hazel Briggs, Senior Analytics Director at Cascade Opal Industries. For 11 years I've turned chaos into clarity, with math not magic. Cascade is Christmas. Ice rinks, cinematic ads, winter wonderland stores. It's all enchantment. But that illusion runs on data. My data. At the annual December assembly, 350 of us sat through artificial snow and lukewarm cider, waiting for one thing, the bonus slide. In a company obsessed with vibes, that bonus was the only thing still tied to real performance. Mine. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. Then Dominic handed the mic to his wife, Juniper. The true architect of Frostfire, he called her. She swept on stage in couture, all polish and power. I knew my team had delivered a 34% ROI. My bonus was contractually guaranteed. But Juniper didn't click to the next slide. Instead, she turned to the crowd. We must confront resistance, outdated thinking, teams obstructing our future. Her eyes locked on me. The data analytics division, Hazel Briggs specifically. Her bonus is being withheld, pending alignment with our new creative direction. Silence. My team froze. Dominic stared at the exit. And Juniper smiled like she just handed out charity. 11 years. Record profits. 70-hour weeks saving this company from visionary disasters. And now I was the villain for refusing to endorse fake influencers and phantom projections. But inside I was already done grieving. I was calculating. Because 9 years ago I wasn't even an employee. I was a 26-year-old consultant with an LLC called Lighthouse Data Solutions. And a proprietary engine I built alone night after night on cheap coffee. I called it Beacon. It didn't just track clicks. It predicted demand with eerie precision, down to the hour, the shade of lipstick, the city block. Cascade hired me when they were dying. Dominic scrapped their disastrous rebrand based on my numbers. Sales jumped 43%. They called it magic. It was math. And the contract? Buried in fine print. Beacon was never theirs. It was always mine. Juniper forgot that data, so I smiled. She hadn't canceled my bonus, she'd just wired the detonator. I walked into Dominic's office, back when his door was always open, and I told him the truth. I told him if he pivoted to athleisure, the company would be bankrupt by third quarter. I told him his core demographic didn't want yoga pants. They wanted accessible luxury and a sensation of tradition. Dominic listened. He scrapped the rebrand. He followed Beacon's guidance precisely, shifting the entire marketing budget to nostalgia-driven holiday campaigns targeted at specific zip codes. The result wasn't just a success. It was a resurrection. Sales jumped 43% in one quarter. The industry called it magically effective. They said Cascade had rediscovered its soul. But it wasn't magic and it wasn't a soul. It was an algorithm running on a server in my apartment. That was the moment everything transformed. Dominic wanted me in-house. He wanted Beacon to be the permanent brain of the company. I remember the negotiation vividly. I was sitting across from the then Director of Human Resources, a weary man named Pullman who just wanted to get the paperwork signed so he could go to lunch. We want you exclusive, Hazel, Pullman had said. Title, benefits, equity, but we need the tools you use. We need Beacon integrated into our infrastructure. I'd agreed, but with one condition. I knew the value of what I'd built. I told them I would license Beacon to Cascade Opal for as long as I was employed there, but the intellectual property remained with Lighthouse Data Solutions. Pullman had shrugged. He grabbed my standard consulting contract, the one I'd written myself, and he literally copy-pasted the terms into my employment offer. He didn't send it to legal for a deep review because Dominic was screaming for me to start Monday. Pullman just wanted it done. So buried in the tools and proprietary systems section of my employment contract was a clause stating, Lighthouse Data Solutions retained full ownership of the Beacon source code and administrative privileges, granting Cascade a non-exclusive, revocable license to use the output. For years it didn't matter. Dominic treated me like an oracle. We grew. The stock split. The bonuses were substantial. Then came Juniper. Juniper Hayes didn't care about algorithms. He cared about aesthetics. When she took over as Chief Creative Officer 18 months ago, the dynamic in the boardroom shifted. Dominic stopped examining my spreadsheets and started examining her mood boards. Data is an accessory, Hazel, she told me once in a meeting, waving a hand dismissively at my quarterly report. It's like jewelry. It should complement the outfit, not dictate it. She began overruling Beacon. She insisted on gut-feeling purchases. She talked about brand atmosphere and cultural resonance while my dashboards showed wasted expenditure bleeding from the accounts. When I pushed back, she called me rigid. When I showed her the math, she called me a buzzkill. And now tonight she'd stood on a stage and called me obsolete. I sit in my home office. The silence of my apartment provides sharp contrast to the noise of the town hall. It's 1 a.m. I haven't changed out of my dress. My makeup remains perfect, a mask that hasn't cracked. On my desk, under the glow of a single lamp, sits a stack of paper. I've retrieved them from my fireproof safe. The ink on the bottom page is 11 years old. It's the original consulting agreement. I trace the signature, Pullman scrawl, my own neat cursive. I flip to the next document, the Beacon license agreement, and then the most recent one, the integration addendum. This was Juniper's doing. 5 months ago, she demanded that Beacon be fully integrated into the new marketing automation platform she'd purchased. She wanted my engine to communicate directly with her ad buying software. She thought she was taking power away from me, automating my job so she wouldn't have to listen to my warnings in meetings. She'd pushed the addendum across the table to me with a smug expression. Just a formality, Hazel. We need the systems to talk to each other. Legal signed off. I'd read it. I doubt she did. I turned the page to section 4.2, paragraph C. When I drafted this language, I was thinking about protecting my engine from bad data. I wanted to ensure that if Cascade's new automated systems tried to pump garbage into Beacon, my code could reject it. The clause reads, to maintain the integrity of the predictive modeling, any campaign with a total media spend exceeding $4 million must pass the licensor's automated brand safety and fraud prevention protocols. Failure to pass these checks grants the licensor the immediate authority to suspend data processing to prevent corruption of the algorithm. The licensor is Lighthouse Data Solutions. The licensor is me. Juniper's Frostfire campaign is budgeted at $8.3 million. She never asked what the brand safety and fraud prevention protocols actually were. She just assumed they were some IT checkbox that would always be green. She assumed because she was the CEO's wife, the systems would bow to her just like the employees did. I lean back in my chair, the leather creaking softly. My eyes drift to the second stack of papers on my desk. Printouts from the internal budget approval system I accessed an hour ago. I'd been suspicious about the size of the Frostfire budget from the start. $8.3 million is massive even for us. Usually a campaign that size is split across 5 or 6 major agencies. Media buying, creative, digital, out of home. But when I examine the vendor routing, the money isn't going to our usual partners. It's not going to the big firms in New York or Los Angeles. The primary vendor of record is an entity called Crimson Spark Creative. I run a quick search on my second monitor. Crimson Spark Creative is a boutique agency registered in Delaware 2 years ago. The registered agent is a lawyer, but the principal address leads to a co-working space in the Arts District. A space I know Juniper visited last month for a photo shoot. And there, in the vendor onboarding documents, is the banking information. The routing number connects to a bank utilized heavily by high-net-worth individuals for private wealth management. It's self-dealing. Has to be. Juniper is funneling $8.3 million of Cascade shareholder money into an agency she likely controls or has a significant stake in. The pieces of the puzzle click together with a satisfying, terrifying snap. This is why she canceled my bonus. It wasn't just petty cruelty. It was strategic. She needed the board of directors to approve that $8.3 million expenditure. To get that approval, she needed to show them a projected return on investment that was astronomical. She needed to promise them that Frostfire would bring in 18 or 25 million in revenue. But Beacon would never have predicted that. Beacon would have examined her vibes-based media plan and predicted a flat line. So she had to silence me. She had to frame me as obstructing innovation and stuck in old models so she could override my projections with her own fabricated numbers. She cut my bonus to discredit me, to signal to the company and the board that my data was no longer the source of truth. She needed me powerless so she could steal $8.3 million in broad daylight. I look at the screen where the beacon icon pulses quietly in the corner of my desktop. It's waiting for instructions. Juniper thinks she's won because she controls the narrative. She thinks because she holds the microphone she holds the power. She thinks Cascade owns Beacon. He's wrong. Cascade is just renting it. And the landlord just found a violation of the lease. I don't feel angry anymore. The burning humiliation from the town hall has cooled into something solid and heavy, like a stone in my hand. I don't need to go to HR. I don't need to sue. I don't need to make a scene in the lobby. If the Frostfire campaign fails the brand safety checks, if it turns out that Crimson Spark Creative is buying ads on fraudulent sites or using fake bot traffic to pump up their numbers, I don't have to break anything. I don't have to manually shut it down and leave my fingerprints on the murder weapon. All I have to do is enforce the contract she signed. I reach for my keyboard. The seed of revenge is not loud or dramatic. It's a quiet recognition. If Beacon detects fraud, Beacon stops the campaign. It's automatic. It's impartial. It's just math. And Juniper is about to learn that math is the only thing in this world you cannot charm. The glow of my dual monitors is the only light in the room. It's 2:30 a.m., 3 hours after Juniper Hayes destroyed my reputation, and I'm doing exactly what a loyal employee would do. I'm logging into the corporate network. My credentials still work. Of course they do. IT would never revoke my access before Monday morning. And even if they tried, my root access to Beacon is hard-coded into the kernel. I'm not just a user. I'm the architect. To the system logs, my activity looks innocuous. I'm simply opening the file directory labeled year-end documentation. It's the kind of boring, dutiful housekeeping that a numbers person like me would be expected to do before clearing out her desk. But I'm not organizing files. I'm hunting. I pull up the master dashboard for the Frostfire campaign. On the surface, it looks impressive. The projected return on investment curve is a steep, confident climb, predicting a dazzling 20% lift in fourth quarter revenue. It's the kind of chart that makes board members drool. It's also completely impossible. I toggle the view from presentation mode to source data. The smooth curve fractures into a jagged mess of manual inputs. I scan the metadata for the last 2 weeks of activity. Usually these projections are generated by Beacon's algorithms based on historical trends and real-time market signals. But these numbers have been hard-coded. Someone simply typed them in. I check the user ID responsible for the changes. I expect to see a junior analyst from finance, maybe coerced into fudging the numbers. Instead, I see a tag I've never seen before. Seen human. Crimson Spark Admin. Juniper's agency has direct right access to our internal financial projections. That's a massive violation of segregation of duties. It's Compliance 101. You don't let the vendor tell you how much money they're going to make you. You calculate it yourself. I drill down deeper. I want to see where the $8.3 million is actually going. The media plan is a labyrinth of line items categorized under vague headings like strategic partnerships and digital amplification. I click on a line item for $1.2 million allocated to a high-impact display network called Prism Horizon Media. The name sounds generic enough to be real, but Beacon's vendor validation tool is flagging a yellow warning next to it. I run a background query on Prism Horizon Media. The company was incorporated 3 months ago. The registered address is a post office box in a strip mall in Reno, Nevada. There's no website, no LinkedIn profile for a CEO, and no trade references. I pull up the incorporation documents from the Nevada Secretary of State database. The registered agent is hidden, but the initial filing officer is listed as Sienna Marsh. I freeze. I know that name. I open a new tab and search for Juniper's old college photos. The ones she's carefully scrubbed from her curated Instagram but that still exist on the archived web. I find a photo from a sorority gala 14 years ago. Juniper is laughing, holding a champagne flute, her arm draped around a brunette woman with sharp eyes. The caption reads, Junie and C, partners in crime forever. Sienna Marsh. Juniper isn't just wasting company money on bad ads. She's funneling $1.2 million to a shell company run by her college best friend. This isn't incompetence. This is embezzlement masked as marketing. A memory flashes in my mind, sharp and sudden. 2 weeks ago I received an instant message from Lawrence Garrett. Hazel, he'd written, just saw the revised Q4 forecast. The jump in Frostfire efficiency is incredible. Did you find a new attribution model? I'd been in meetings all day and hadn't checked the logs. I assumed he was talking about the small optimization tweaks my team had made. I'd replied, "We're always tuning the engine, Lawrence. Glad it looks good." I scroll back through my chat history with Lawrence now. I find his response. "Great. Juniper told me you finally saw the light and signed off on her targets. Good to have everyone aligned." I stare at the screen. I never signed off on those targets. Juniper lied to the CEO. She used my credibility, the trust I'd built with Lawrence over a decade, to validate her fraudulent projections. She told him I'd approved the numbers so he would release the funds. And then, once the money was secured, she publicly humiliated me to ensure I'd be too discredited to contradict her when the real numbers came in. It's a masterclass in manipulation. She used me as the key to unlock the vault, and then she broke the key so no one could use it again. I feel a cold, vibrating anger in my chest. But my hands remain steady. I need more proof. I need to prove that the value she's buying with this stolen money is fake. I switch to the media by execution logs. The CS_admin account has been busy. They've purchased millions of impressions across a network of holiday influencer partners. I pull the list of influencers. It's a roster of names like Chic by Charlotte 88 and Winter Dreams Anahu. I feed the handles into Beacon's fraud detection module. The results populate instantly. Red flags everywhere. Chic by Charlotte 88 has 62,000 followers but 0.01% engagement rate. The account was created in October. The profile photo is a stock image available on Getty Images. The posts are generic reposts of holiday memes. Winter Dreams from Mom is even worse. The account activity shows bursts of thousands of likes appearing at exactly 2 a.m. All from IP addresses located in a server farm in Eastern Europe. These aren't influencers. They're bot farms. Crimson Spark Creative is buying traffic from itself or its partners to simulate interest. They're going to run the Frostfire ads on these fake pages, charge Cascade premium rates for the exposure, and the only people seeing our $8.3 million campaign will be Russian bots and automated scripts. But how did this get past the blockade? Beacon is designed to block this automatically. I wrote the code myself. If an ad buy has a fraud score above 6%, the system kills the purchase order. These buys have fraud scores of 97%. I go into the system configuration logs. I search for override. And there it is. Dated 10 days ago. A ticket from the IT help desk. Priority 1 whitelist request. The notes read, per instruction from J. Hayes, the Crimson Spark API pipeline is to be whitelist to bypass legacy latency checks, critical for campaign launch speed. Approved by CIO. She didn't just lie to finance. She bullied IT. She framed Beacon's fraud checks as legacy latency issues, technical lag that was slowing down her brilliance. She forced them to punch a hole in the firewall so her agency could pump sewage directly into our ecosystem without the alarms going off. She thinks she disabled the alarm. But she doesn't understand how the building is wired. The whitelist she demanded applies to the Cascade network firewalls. It allows Crimson Spark to send data to us. But once that data enters our environment, it still has to be processed. It still has to be reported. And the engine that does the reporting is Beacon. She bypassed the gate guard, but she's still walking into my house. I look at the calendar on my wall. It's December 3rd. The Frostfire campaign goes fully national on December 6th. That's in 3 days. The media buys are queued up. The bot farms are ready to spin. The shell companies are waiting for the wire transfers. I open the Beacon administrative console. Normally, we run system audits in January when the retail season is over. A quiet time to clean up code and archive data. But as the license owner, I have the contractual right to inspect the system for stability assurance, whenever I deem it necessary to protect the integrity of the intellectual property. I create a new task. Task name, Year-End Stability Review. Priority, critical. Scope, full system scan. I set the start date for December 5th at midnight, 24 hours before the Frostfire launch. The audit will run silently in the background. It will monitor every transaction, every impression, every click, every dollar flowing through the system. And because the system is in audit mode, the standard whitelists don't apply. In audit mode, Beacon checks everything. But I'm not just going to watch. I'm going to intervene. I open the logic editor for the Beacon core protocol. My fingers fly across the mechanical keys, the sound distinct and rhythmic in the quiet room. I locate the conditional logic for audit findings. Currently, the system is set to log and notify. If it finds an anomaly, it writes a line in a text file and sends an email to the admin. That's not enough. Not for this. I delete the log and notify command. I type in a new set of instructions. Fraudiness greater than or equal to 15% or vendor validation equals true. Then execute protocol heard. I define protocol heard. It's a simple script but devastating. Step 1. Immediate suspension of all active media insertion orders associated with the flagged campaign ID. Step 2. Revocation of all API tokens for the originating vendor. Step 3. Auto-generation of a compliance breach report. I pause here. I need to make sure this report goes to the right people. If it just goes to Juniper, she'll bury it. I configure the distribution list for the report. Recipient 1. Audit Committee of the Board of Directors. Recipient 2. General Counsel. Recipient 3. Chief Financial Officer. Recipient 4. External Regulatory Compliance Archive. I set the report to be immutable PDF format, digitally signed, time-stamped, and encrypted. Once it's generated, it cannot be edited, deleted, or recalled. It becomes a permanent legal record of exactly what happened. I look at the code one last time. It's elegant. It's impartial. It doesn't care about office politics or who's married to the CEO. It only cares about the truth. If Juniper's campaign is legitimate, if her influencers are real people and her vendors are actual businesses, then Beacon will scan them, find nothing, and the Frostfire campaign will launch without a hitch. I'll have done my job and she'll have her victory. But if she's lying, and the data says she's lying on a scale that constitutes felony fraud, then the moment she tries to push the go button on her $8.3 million disaster, Beacon will catch her hand in the jar and slam the lid shut. I press Commit Changes. The progress bar slides from left to right. Update successful. System armed. I close my laptop. The fan whirs to a stop, leaving the room in silence again. I stand up and walk to the window looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, in the penthouse of the Hayes estate, Juniper is probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of magazine covers and galas. She thinks she's erased me. She thinks she's cut me out of the equation. She forgot the most important rule of data analytics. Garbage in, garbage out. I'm just taking out the trash. It's launch morning. December 6th, 8:30 a.m. The open plan office on the 23rd floor is vibrating. The energy is a physical thing. A high-frequency thrum of adrenaline and caffeine. Everyone is wearing some form of holiday cheer. Reindeer antler headbands, ugly sweaters, glitter. The air smells like burnt coffee and sugar cookies. And then there's Juniper. She sweeps onto the floor at precisely 8:50, not as a CEO's wife but as a general on Victory Day. She's wearing a floor-length wool coat in winter white so pure it's almost blue. It's an impractical, impossible garment for an office, which is exactly the point. She's not here to work. She's here to be documented. Behind her, a two-person camera crew scrambles to keep up. They're filming behind-the-scenes content for her Crimson Spark portfolio. She's radiant, all teeth and sharp cheekbones, pointing at dashboards, laughing with junior designers, and generally performing the role of the visionary. "I just want everyone to remember this feeling," she announces to the room at large. "This is what it feels like to make magic. Today we don't just launch a campaign. We launch a new era for Cascade." I'm in my office, door closed, blinds half drawn. On one screen, the vanity dashboard flashing soaring numbers as the war room cheers. On the other, the Beacon admin console. At 8:45 a.m. the campaign launches. Juniper basks in applause, arms wide, cameras locked on her triumphant grin. I watch Beacon's real-time audit. Within seconds, fraud metrics spike. Non-human traffic surges past 80%. Shell vendors route ads through blacklisted IPs. Influencer clicks pour in from a single Romanian server farm. For 8 minutes, I let the system gather irrefutable proof. At 8:53 a.m., the threshold is breached. Protocol executed. Instantly, every ad vanishes, from Times Square billboards to Instagram feeds. Platforms like Google and Meta kill the campaign, citing a compliance alert from my beacon license key. Chaos erupts. A panicked media buyer shouts that all insertion orders are gone. CPMs drop to zero. The room implodes. Marketing blames IT blames the platforms. In my silent office, the phone rings. Lawrence. It's not a glitch, I tell him. It's the audit. Beacon shut it down. It detected massive fraud. He exhales. Jesus Christ. And hangs up. Then the door explodes open. Juniper stands in the frame, coat flying, face twisted in rage, camera crew gone. You. She storms into my office, fury blazing. You did this, she screams. You sabotaged me. You ruined it. I didn't do anything, I say, voice low. I just watched you try to defraud this company. Fraud? It's innovation. I'll have you fired, arrested. She leans over my desk, spittle flying. I don't flinch. I place my original contract on the desk. Lighthouse Data Solutions, 11 years old. You can't fire me, Juniper. When it comes to Beacon, I'm not an employee. I'm the licensor. And if Cascade terminates me in bad faith, the license terminates too. I lean in. Not just for Frostfire. For everything. The website. E-commerce. Inventory. The whole $12 billion company goes dark. Because you didn't read the contract. Her rage cracks. Horror floods in. She's speechless. A soft ping from my screen. The compliance report is already sent. To the audit committee, general counsel, CFO. The bomb is in the air. The emergency board meeting begins in a snow globe silence. Dominic looks hollow. Juniper sees. Lydia Forrester watches like a hawk. This is a vendetta, Juniper snaps. She sabotaged my campaign after I withheld her bonus. I turn to Lydia. May I use the projector? She nods. I pull up Beacon's console, raw data, red alerts. This isn't revenge. It's an audit. Beacon shut down your campaign because it's fraudulent. Slide 1. 91% of Crimson Spark's influencer traffic comes from a Romanian server farm. Slide 2. $1.2 million funneled to a shell company run by Sienna Marsh, Juniper's college friend. Slide 3. A flowchart tracing $8.3 million straight to her inner circle. The system detected self-dealing. Wire fraud. Falsified results. This isn't about my bonus. It's about felony-level theft. Lydia removes her glasses. If I see this, the SEC sees it. This isn't a mistake, Juniper. It's an indictment. Dominic stammers. Just fix it. Turn it back on. Lawrence cuts in. She lied to me. Said you signed off on the numbers, Hazel. Used your credibility to push the budget through. I look at Dominic. I won't override the safeguards. That would make me complicit. Juniper snarls. You'll do as you're told, or I'll destroy your career. But I just smile, because she still doesn't get it. I'm not the problem. I'm the off switch. No, I say. I will not. I turn to Lydia. There's one more thing. When Juniper and IT whitelist Crimson Spark to bypass Beacon's fraud checks, they didn't just break compliance, they breached a contract. Lydia's head snaps up. What contract? Wine. I slide my bound employment agreement across the table. Beacon has always belonged to my LLC, Lighthouse Data Solutions. Cascade's only ever licensed it. And the license forbids bypassing integrity protocols or feeding falsified data into the system. That's a material breach. I lock eyes with Juniper. You didn't just defraud your husband's company, you did it using my software. And when you threatened to fire me, you triggered the bad faith termination clause. Back to Lydia. If I'm walked out of this building, the Beacon license revokes. Immediately. Not just for Frostfire. For everything. E-commerce. Inventory. The entire $12 billion supply chain goes dark before lunch. Dominic gasps. Juniper pales. The realization hits. She's been checkmated. Lydia studies me, then the contract, then Dominic's crumbling composure. She pushes her chair back, turns fully away from Juniper and Dominic and addresses only me. All right, Hazel, she says, voice low. We're in breach. What would it take to get us out of this, without lying? Juniper freezes. The conversation has moved on. She's no longer the visionary. She's the liability. And I'm the only one with the solution. Dominic and Juniper are ushered out. Only Lydia Lawrence and I remain. This isn't about firing me anymore. It's about avoiding indictment. We kill the campaign, I say. But we frame it as a win. Our proprietary system Beacon auto-terminated Frostfire due to vendor irregularities. We protected shareholders. We make it look like governance working as intended, not a scam collapsing. Elegant, Lydia admits. But it burns Crimson's spark. They're already ash, I reply. I'm just keeping us from catching fire. And your price. I hand her a new document. A commercial license between Cascade and Lighthouse Data Solutions. You keep using Beacon, but I retain full veto over data integrity. No more overrides. No more whitelists. If a vendor fails my protocols, they don't get paid. Period. You want insulation, Lydia says. Exactly. And if you think losing Beacon before Christmas is bad, imagine explaining that to the SEC after Juniper's projections cross into wire fraud. Lydia nods. It's fair. And legally necessary. He stands. I'll draft the termination notice. Lawrence, get Dominic. We need signatures. Later, in the executive restroom, Juniper finds me at the sink. Her hair's undone, mascara smudged. I hope you're happy, she whispers. Happiness has nothing to do with it. You don't understand the pressure, she says, voice shaking. I just wanted to prove I could contribute. It was just a campaign, she pleads. Everyone fudges numbers. You turned it into a federal case over a bonus. I look at her, really look, and say nothing. I see it now. She truly believes she's the victim. That wanting to feel important justifies stealing $8.3 million and lying to everyone. She thinks crying in a bathroom earns her sympathy. That being two women in a hard place makes us allies. We're not. You're right about one thing, I say, voice steady. I didn't do this because of the bonus. Then why, she sniffles. Why humiliate me? Because you thought rules didn't apply to you just because you married the man who signs the checks. You thought you could silence truth by cutting my pay. I toss the paper towel into the bin. It lands with a soft thud. You didn't make a mistake, Juniper. You made choices, fake numbers, shell vendors, public erasure. You canceled my bonus. The system canceled your campaign. It was fair. It's over. I walk past her. She's still at the sink, sobbing for an audience that's already gone. Back in the boardroom, Dominic looks hollow. He signs the termination order, the new license. And finally, the memorandum confirming the campaign failed due to Beacon's fraud detection, not human error. Lydia nods. It protects the narrative. It also ensures Juniper can never rewrite history. As I reach the door, Dominic calls out, "The bonus, I'll reinstate it. With interest." "Keep it," I say. I just signed a new consulting retainer. My rate went up 400%. The door clicks shut behind me, the sweetest sound I've ever heard. 3 months later, I'm in my new office above a bookstore. Beacon runs clean, monitoring Cascade's real campaign, built in 4 days on truth, not fantasy. The board's forensic audit confirmed everything and more. Juniper had used Cascade's staff, studios, and inventory to build Crimson Spark's portfolio. Theft of service. Breach of fiduciary duty. She resigned. Dominic offered me chief data officer, leadership suite equity, the seat I'd earned that I declined. Instead, I reactivated Lighthouse Data Solutions. Cascade is now my first client. Under my terms, with full IP control and a retainer that dwarfs that canceled bonus. Juniper emailed, "You didn't have to destroy my campaign." I replied, "I canceled the fraud, not the Christmas." On my last visit to Cascade, I saw her Frostfire props piled by the service elevator, glittering snowflakes, banners with her face. A show that closed on opening night. Now, in my quiet office, coffee in hand, I sign a contract with a major Seattle retailer. They asked one question: "Can you make sure we never have a Frostfire situation?" I can. They canceled my bonus to prove a point. I canceled their campaign to prove a fact. You don't cut the person who holds the off switch. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Boss Revenge stories like this video, and hit that notification bell so more people can hear this story.